Hello, everyone. Hello. My name is Lily Cunning. I'm an herbalist, and I'm here to talk with you a little bit today and answer questions about being an herbalist. There are lots of ways to manifest herbalism in your life. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk about what herbalism is, getting started. You know, uh, Usually when folks are thinking about becoming an herbalist, they don't necessarily have a reality based idea of what the day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year uh, time crunch is on herbalism. So, we're going to talk about that as well. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully, y'all can see that. So, as I said, my name is Lily Cunning. I teach classes and I also do wellness consultations and coaching through Lily Cunning Community Herbalist. I'm also the formulator for Haven Herbs, which is sort of a ready made herbal apothecary where people can just buy online and get it shipped to them. I'm the chief formulator and production maven for Haven. Um, so, like I said, I'm a community and clinical herbalist. I do all of that stuff. Um, and I got started in herbalism when nothing else helped. A couple times in a row, actually. When I was 32 years old, I went into early perimenopause, and that's really early. There goes my cat. Um, Really early because I my period stopped. I was having night sweats that were, waking me up in the middle of the night. I was really irritable. And so I went to my OBGYN. This was before I studied any herbalism at all. Went to my OBGYN and, told her I think I'm going into perimenopause. She's like, no, 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 you're too young. And I'm like, well, here's my symptoms. And she's like, yeah, yeah, you're too young. Give it some time. She didn't do any tests. She didn't do anything. I really felt like I was not taken seriously. And this was a female OBGYN. Like, I was astonished. So, I suffered for a little while longer, and I was living in San Francisco, California at the time. And I meandered into a gorgeous little herb store called Scarlet Sage, which is still one of my favorites in the world. And at the time, it was run by a couple herbalists, and one of them was staffing that day. And, I was looking around and I was going to buy some soap and maybe some tea, candles, et cetera, et cetera. And she's like, is there anything in particular that you're looking for? And something told me to tell her what I was doing. And so I was like, well, I'm having night sweats. My period hasn't been around for a couple months and I'm really cranky. And she said, wow, it sounds like you went into perimenopause. How old are you? And I was like, 32. She's like, that's really early. And I said, yeah. And she's like, well, have you tried Vitex? And I was like, I don't even know what Vitex is, so no. And she handed me this little brown bottle, dropper bottle, and she's like, take this every day, twice a day. This is how you take it. Um, you'll start to see some improvement after a month, but really you should take it for 3 months, which means you should come back here after a month and get another bottle because this is about a month's supply. After 3 months, you'll see its optimum effect, but it should take care of it. And I was like, okay. So I did what she said. And not only did my period come back and everything normalized and no more night sweats, but I went on later in life at 39 to have a child. So it truly did normalize. That was the first time that herbalism helped me when Western medicine didn't, and I was intrigued. I thought that was amazing. And the plant that I took, it was literally one plant, the berries of one plant extracted into alcohol and water. Um, and then, I worked at a place where I ended up working myself to death on a computer related job, got carpal tunnel and tendonitis in my elbow, and it cascaded because I kept working frozen fascia in my back. And I ended up on workers' comp for 2 years. And luckily, at that point, I had been open enough to alternatives that I had pre designated my primary care physician to be my acupuncturist, which is allowed in California. And so my acupuncturist oversaw my whole workers' comp treatment. And I did herbalism, Chinese herbalism, acupuncture, deep tissue, fascia release massage, a, a practice called Feldenkrais. I did physical therapy because workers' comp demanded it, but I found fantastic physical therapy practitioners. Um, and I went to 4 visits a week for 2 years. My goal was to not have surgery because so many people who have carpal tunnel surgery end up in more pain or having to have more surgery. And I just did not want that. So here I am many, many, many years later, fully functional. I work on the computer. Um, I have learned what my limits are on the computer, and herbs helped me then, Chinese herbs this time around. And I learned a lot around holistic wellness from my acupuncturist. So 2 times. And so I was very intrigued. And when I found out that there was an herb school near me, a 3-year program with a clinical internship, I jumped at it. I went to herb school and trained to be an herbalist. Now, what did I get trained on? Well, there is a lot to learn if you want to be a clinical herbalist, or even a formulary herbalist. There's many different kinds of herbalists. So where I went, I was training to be a clinical herbalist, and I was training to treat people. So I learned anatomy and physiology, all the different systems of the body and how they interrelate, because it's a holistic medicine system. Unlike modern biochemical medicine, which sort of specializes, and so people are a gastroenterologist or a podiatrist or an oncologist, and they specialize and they narrow their scope. Holistic medicine doesn't work that way. It sees the body systems as interconnected. It sees the human being interconnected with its environment. So there's a lot more uh, that you can always learn. I've been an herbalist for decades, and I am constantly upping my game in terms of what I learn and what I know. So, anatomy and physiology, constantly staying abreast of the latest in anatomy and physiology. Also, learn techniques of medicine making, not only formulating, but like the different types of medicine and specializing and different solvents. And there's a whole phytochemistry element to being an herbalist that you have to learn. There's also working with the plants themselves. You could become a cultivator or a wild crafter, um, and learning, where plants like to grow, what their ideal conditions are, how to mimic that in cultivation, how to learn how to harvest them optimally and then process them, and pre-process them to make medicine, wild crafting ethics, and then of course the materia medica, right? Like the plants themselves. You have to learn about their actions in the body. You have to learn about their energetics. And then you have to learn how to play matchmaker. Once you've learned about your client, your patient, you have to match them to the right plant, because there's lots of different plants that have the same actions in the body, but the way that symptoms are manifesting and the way that someone's constitution is may require a different herb than what you're thinking. I'll give you an example. Eczema. Eczema is an irritating skin rash. Sometimes it manifests as a dry, itchy rash that bleeds when you scratch it. And sometimes it manifests as a wet, damp, weeping rash that's very messy. Now, both of these have the diagnosis of eczema in Western medicine. However, an herbalist would treat both of those rashes differently. For a dry, itchy rash, you would want something moistening and gentle. And for a wet, weeping rash, you would want something that would dry it up, right? And so those are called energetics of plants. And so a good herbalist not only doesn't treat conditions, they treat people, but they also learn how to play matchmaker between a plant ally and a human being or another type of animal client. I also, treat my companion animals, for example. Um, So as I said, it's more than, elderberry's good for the flu. Herb X treats condition Y. That's not how herbalism works. I know that on the internet, that's how herbalism works, but that is truly not how herbalists work with people to make them better. We look at symptom manifestation. Like I said, is it a wet, weepy rash or is it a dry, itchy rash? The condition and constitution of the person. Um, we look at the energetics of a plant and the actions of a plant, and then we play matchmaker. There are some broad brushstrokes that you can think of as you're learning about the materia medica, as you learn about plants that you can get you started. And I designed a course called the People's Medicine course, which is a self-paced class where you learn one herb a month. You learn its actions, its energetics, its history, its contraindications and warnings. I give you a downloadable book all about that herb. And then every week, you get lessons where you're doing hands-on work, making medicine, making food, wildcrafting, doing all kinds of things to reinforce those lessons about that plant. Um, those are some broad brushstrokes as you are learning herbalism. And if you're interested in People's Medicine course, I can always send you a link. Um, but when you're treating people and not their conditions, you want to look at the conditions and how they manifest in those people. You know, you can assess what kinds of medicines your family needs, right? Do you get frequent headaches? Um, do you have seasonal allergies like hay fever? Do you have a toddler that gets a lot of cuts and scrapes? Do you have digestive issues and what kind? Now, these are very broad brushstrokes, right? Because everything in herbalism is about root cause. Why are you getting headaches? Do you have a brain tumor or do you have, you know, uh, uh, seasonal allergies? Do you have migraines or do you have like a spinal misalignment? There are so many different reasons why a headache is there. Now, Western biochemical medicine says, here, take this pill for all your headaches, but that is not how herbalism works. We want to know why you're getting a headache because we want you to get better. We don't want you reliant on medicine for the rest of your life. So assessing different conditions of things, but then really getting to the people. Who are the people that you're looking to help? Right? Are they healthy adults with no immune compromised conditions like cancer? Are they children? Is it the elderly? Or do you have someone with an autoimmune disease or cancer that you're looking to help? Each population will have different needs in terms of what herbs they can take, as well as how much they should take and how often, um, and the different types of medicine. If you're treating someone that has a feeding tube, obviously an oral medication is not what you want. You want something that they can absorb through the skin. So the method of administration would be different. Um, all of these things need to be taken into consideration as you are trying to help people. Um, and then you want to look at where you're getting the plants that you are playing matchmaker with, right? Sourcing. Sourcing is so important. And for the longest time, I was trained as an urban herbalist. I did not grow my own plants because I did not have access to land. So many of us are like that, where we don't have access to land. And so when you are buying herbs, it is ridiculously important to buy them from a company that has ethical sourcing, that has sustainable sourcing, and that has high quality sourcing. My number one recommendation for anyone, especially if you're making small quantities, is Mountain Rose herbs. They have been around since the 70s. They have a sustainability ethos. All of their plants are either organic, cultivated, or ethically wildcrafted. Um, they not only have bulk herbs, but they also have blends, they have tinctures, you can get, they have essential oils. They have so many different botanically based products that you can get. And they have kinds of ingredients that you can get too. Let's say you want to make a body butter. They have fair trade shea butter. They have oils. They have essential oils. There's so many different things you can get from Mountain Rose. And I recommend them because I like them. I don't get any kickback from that. Um, you can also try Star West Botanicals, also on the West Coast. So Mountain Rose is in Oregon and Star West is in Southern California. There are other herb companies, um, but you want to make sure that the herbs that you get are, within 6 months of harvest. You want to make sure that they were sourced in a way that didn't poach or endanger the future of medicinal plants. Um, so definitely investigate where you're getting things from. And if you can get things from your local farms, even better, because you're getting it fresh, you're getting it at its most potent, you can make it into medicine at its peak freshness. And you don't have to use fossil fuels to get it to you, right? Like it's right there. So cultivating those relationships locally is even better. And of course, if you can grow your own, oh, much better. Like if you have a balcony, you can grow certain things in pots, right? Cultivation is something that, if you learn a handful of herbs that are going to help you, um, growing those herbs would be great, even if it's in containers. The other thing that you'll need to learn to really get started is the actions of herbs. Now, a lot of these actions are familiar to people who, have had to take medicine before. Antihistamine is an action. Anti-inflammatory is an action. Analgesic or pain relief is an action. And herbs contain these actions just like synthetic pharma does. In fact, until 1986, most of the pharma was extracted from plants, compounded, and then made into medicine. It wasn't synthetically sourced until after 1986. And the only reason that that started was not because it was more effective, but because it was cheaper. So I believe, and this is my opinion, that everything that we need exists here on this planet. We just need to become familiar with it. I also believe that many of our illnesses are caused by the environment that human beings have created. Uh, the lack of nutritious food being eaten, the pollution, the forever chemicals. And so, if we cease that kind of activity and reduce its toxicity in our lives, and we learn about plants and how they can help us, I believe that we would be much uh, healthier. So these herbal actions, when I teach my herb students, for example, they study these actions. Um, I think the quiz that I ask them to study for, I ask them to study 96 different actions. They need to become familiar with how the plants work in the body. And action just means the action that an herb's phytochemicals has on the human systems of the body. So, for example, carminatives, digestives, work on the digestive system, and they help reduce gas and bloating and acid reflux and those sorts of things. That's what a carminative does. Um, a nervine works on the nervous system, and there are three different kinds of nervines. There are nervine sedatives, so calming of the nervous system. There are nervine stimulants that excite the nervous system. Caffeine is a very popular nervine stimulant, for example, that is found in tea and yerba mate and coffee and kola nut. And then nervine tonics are things that fortify and strengthen the nervous system. And these are things that you might want to take if you have multiple sclerosis or you have Parkinson's, nervine tonics. So learning those herbal actions is also important. Learning about herbal medicine types and how to make them all optimally, the solvents that are involved and what kind of constituents they extract. So salves and oils are lipid-based um, medicines, and most of the time they are topical. Bath steams and washes are also topical. Even with steam, like sinus steams, you're inhaling it, but it's topical on the inside of your nose. Um, so all of those phytochemicals come in contact with the body either through water or steam. Sweet uh, herbal medicine types, oxymels, which is vinegar and honey together, elixirs, which are extract water extractions that have some alcohol to preserve it, and honey. Syrups, which tend to be sugar, but many people make syrups with honey as well. Honeys and electuaries are honey-based medicines. Honeys are where you extract the plant into the honey and then remove the plant. Electuaries are where you dry and powder the plant and you suspend it in the honey. So it's like a paste. And I make an electuary for Haven Herbs called turmeric tea paste, which is a golden milk formula that I love. I put it in my coffee every day. Um, you can also make herbal candies, hard candies, and bolus style lozenges. Um, and these are things that you suck on, and suckers also, right? All of these can be made into herbal remedies. Compresses and fomentations, things that you press onto the skin with or without heat. Tinctures, glycerites, and vinegars. A lot of people use the word tincture to mean any kind of liquid extraction, whether it's vinegar, glycerin, or alcohol. But tincture actually specifically refers to an alcohol extract. Most of them are like 50-50 or 40-60 of alcohol to water. I tend to use 50-50, so I know exactly what my potential constituents are. But glycerin in vinegar are often substituted for alcohol for people that maybe have alcohol restrictions, either through, being an alcoholic or having religious prohibitions or just not liking it. But I will tell you, as an herbalist, I prefer tinctures and I would rather somebody evaporate off the alcohol and take it as a tea um, than use a glycerite or a vinegar because glycerin and vinegar don't extract the same phytochemicals as tinctures. Tinctures extract both ethanol uh, and water soluble constituents, whereas glycerites and vinegars just water soluble. Think of them as an herbal tea, but preserved longer. And that's valuable, right? Teas have been medicine for people for generations, and many herbs, the water soluble constituents are things that you want. And so having a tea or a glycerite or a vinegar is perfectly acceptable. But when need those ethanol soluble constituents, you really want to take a tincture. Suppositories are also easy to make as an herbalist. And these not only treat vaginal and anal problems like hemorrhoids, fissures, bacterial vaginosis, or yeast infections, but you can also use suppositories to treat other conditions for people that can't take thing by mouth. They do it in the hospital all the time, right? They give people their medicine through a suppository. They compound it in the hospital pharmacy and do that. So suppositories are something that you can definitely make. And body care items, of course, right? And you can infuse those body care items with botanical goodness. Lotions come to mind, but also ointments and creams um, and toothpaste, all kinds of things, right? The things that you might need to get started are, of course, a well-equipped kitchen. You're going to need a way to heat things, dehydrate things. Um, you're going to need mason jars. Mason jars are my favorite way to make herbal medicine for a number of reasons. If you're melting lipids like shea butter or cocoa butter, uh, you can melt it, and there are measurements right on the side so you know precisely what your liquid measure is. You can also store your items in the mason jars long term. So, you know, you can make oils and tinctures and extract them using the maceration method in mason jars. You can use heat to use mason jars, and you can store long term if you make more than what you need immediately. You also are probably going to want jelly strainer bags. Now, these are a canning supply material, but when you're straining out um, your mark from your mark is your plant material, your menstruum is the liquid solvent that you used to extract things, whether that's oil or alcohol or vinegar. You're going to want to squeeze it out unless you have a tincture press, which very few beginners do. Um, this allows you to pour everything through the jelly strainer bag, get what's immediately out, and then squeeze as hard as you can to get that last bit of goodness out. Mesh strainers are also handy for this purpose. And then packaging, of course, for individual units. Let's say you make a salve for dry skin, right? For winter time because your hands crack. Um, if you use a little pint jar to make it, you're going to have way more salve than you need to put in a tin. So you can pour some when it's liquid in the liquid stage in the tin, and then you can store the rest of it in your mason jar and just label it. And that way, all you have to do is melt it and pour it each time you want more or you want to give some as gifts. So, um, I want to give you some resources. Everybody who registered for this class is going to get a copy of the slideshow, which has embedded links, as well as a copy of the recording. Um, it looks like we may have some Q&A in the chat, but these folks are reputable authors here on the right, some of my favorites. On the left, I do have classes online. In addition to these webinars, I mentioned the People's Medicine course. I also am designing a whole bunch more on botanical-based incense, on bodies for herbalists, learning the anatomy and physiology that you need, essential oils, all different kinds of things. And then the blogs that are fantastic. The Haven Herbs blog has all kinds of videos and blog posts on wellness topics. The Mountain Rose blog often has really great recipes to get you started. And then if you're looking for herbal activities in your area, regardless of where you are in the United States, Herb Rally right there has a whole class listing for events and things. So I would definitely check out Herb Rally. Let me stop my share. And it looks like we have a question. So where did I go to herb school? Yeah. So when I was living in California, that's where I went to herb school. I went in Berkeley, California. The herb school has changed its name since I went there. When I went there, it was called Ohlone School for Herbal Medicine. Now it is called Berkeley Herbal Center. Um, and my class was team taught. I had four teachers and they all took turns. They all had different specialties. Some people loved medicine making, some people loved anatomy and physiology, some people were clinicians and really helped learn case management and things like that. So I was really lucky. I had a wonderful course that was team taught by some really wonderful herbalists. Um, if y'all have any other questions for me, I am available. You can email me, and I'm happy to answer questions. But like I said, I'm going to send the recording of this session out to you, and I'm going to send the slideshow, which has embedded links. I look forward to seeing you soon. Feel free to register for more Exploring Wellness webinars. Um, I have one a month through the end of 2025. And I also have on the website that I have my online classes, many self-paced classes too, and wellness coaching. In January, actually, I have Wellness in Weeks where once a month we do a webinar. And then every week of that month, you're going to move the needle on your health by doing something. So let's say in the diets and nutrition section, we're going to work on doing assessments of your diet, making some swaps and changes, one little step at a time. And it's designed for people that maybe have chronic conditions or chronic pain and have tried everything, but still feel like they need help with their wellness. So Wellness in Weeks starts up in January. I would love to have some of you there. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye bye.